I've been a teacher in the Aberdeen School District for 30 years, and I really do appreciate the efforts this legislative session to focus on education. I guess I'm a little confused with the proposal that we have different funding plans available. For 30 years, we have heard that there is no money, and I really don't think that the answer is to rob Peter to pay Paul, because that's not going to solve any problems. And what I'm wondering is, Senator Novstrup, where would this alternative funding come from if it hasn't ever been there before?
Okay, so the question is for Senator Novstrup, looking for an answer on where alternative funding would come from education. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the question, and we've emailed back and forth a few times, and I haven't been specific in those emails, but I appreciate being specific now. One thing that's important to know is $20 to $25 million were reverted at the end of this last fiscal year. So that might be one possibility to get some funding, because if departments aren't spending it, then we're over appropriating. So if we continue to over appropriate, they're just not spending the money. So that is maybe one possibility. The plan that I think is the most viable, which Bob Mercer laid out a pretty good article last Sunday with 5 proposals. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, try to go find it on the American News website from last Sunday. But the plan that I think is the most viable, and obviously the tax increase is one, but the other alternative that I think might work is Representative Gosh's plan, which he has 2 of them. It would be option 4 on the Bob Mercer article. But it would take $30 million from the general bill that is appropriated for other areas. It would be moved to education. And then Senate Bill 131 also has $19 million, which, and there's also moving the pension fund to the general fund. And that $30 million from the general fund, people say that's not sustainable. Well, if it's not sustainable for education, then the $15.54 million that was identified from social services isn't sustainable in social services. And that's an adjustment from the FY16 actual rather than the FY16 budget estimate. And there's cut the M&R 4th year funding in half and change the plan to complete the 2% goal in 5 years. That's $5.22 million. There's been an overestimating of K-12 enrollment, which once again we're paying for, or we have budgeted for students that aren't there in our current way of doing it. So that would be $0.73 million. I talked about social services already. Human services also has an overestimate, which is $3.18 million. And if you add those all up, that's $28.99, which is obviously not the same as the tax increase. But the governor has a lot more resources and expertise, because he has a whole department looking at this budget. So if that bill fails, I can guarantee that he will find money, and we will find money. And we might not be able to do it in one year, but we could do it in 2 or 3 years. So there could be drastic improvement even by next fall. And there's other things. I've heard just this last week that the Appropriations Committee, some of them have identified up to $85 million. I don't know if some of that's ongoing or one-time money. I didn't get into it because it was really quick just going through the halls. But that's more than the Blue Ribbon Task Force, or the 1182 for education. So I need to look into those more. I'm not saying it's a done certain plan that is absolutely rock solid, but I know it's getting very, very close, and regardless, there will be something, like I talked in my opening remarks, we will make this work. I just have 100% confidence in that. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to share since I have the mic about that. I think one thing that's interesting is and I'm not saying this is bad, but it's just interesting data from when they put the new formula that isn't new anymore because it's been since '95 that we put it in. But total staff, well, actually, let me back up. Fall enrollment K-12 was 134,964. In the 2014-15 school year, it was 129,772, which is 4,518 students less, which is a 3.4% decline. Total staff in that same time period went up 2,536, which I don't understand why we have less students and our staff is going the other way. And I would like to know the cause of that. And I'm sure somebody will tell me now that I said that publicly. But that's fine. That's part of why and how I make decisions. So I'll appreciate that input. And that's not just teachers. That's all staff in the school system, which I'm sure a lot of it, or some of it is to blame for federal mandates, or I'm sure the state is also to blame for mandates. But when our K-12 enrollment is going down and our staff is going up, it's an awkward, weird trend, or needs to be explained. And it just doesn't make sense because, and I know education is not business, so don't take it this way, but if you're in business and your customers are getting less and less, you have to have less staff because you don't have the resources to have it. So I'm not saying any teacher should be fired either. I'm not saying that, but through retirements you can get to a number that makes sense. So, and the other thing really quick is teacher to student ratio in the 95-96 school year was 15. The teacher to student ratio was 15. Now it's 13.5. So we're actually getting better. And if you want to go all the way back to 1970, it went from 20.5 to now 13.5. And the amount of students we've lost in that time period is 43,234. So there's been a drastic decline in our K-12 enrollment. And the other thing is the number one factor in student success is a good teacher. There's other factors that play a role, but that is the number one reason. So if you have a good teacher with a larger class size, they can have those kids achieve more than a poor teacher in a very small class. Once again, I'm not saying small school teachers are bad, but I'm just saying that if you have a great teacher, they can teach more kids in the classroom and achieve more. So, thank you.